Welcome, fellow travelers. It's Mickey Gold. Today, I wanted to talk to you about things being simple but not easy. Actually, I didn't want to talk to you about that. This was not what I was planning on doing for my video today. However, I got woken up at 1 o'clock in the morning and was not able to go back to sleep until 2:45 when I was like, fine, I will do a video on this concept. Now, I have the tendency to be the person who ignores that voice, that ignores that intuition, because I was brought up to think that I shouldn't listen to myself, that everybody knew better than me outside of me. So I tend to be a little feisty when it comes to kind of submitting to my intuition, and it's taken me quite a long time. However, I realize now to make my life flow easier, when I get those wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, I do what I'm asked. And so what I wanted to talk to you about is that I present techniques that are super simple. However, I don't want you to ever think for a moment that any of them are easy. Like, for instance, the meditation where I talk about breathing, counting your breaths 1 to 10 and starting all over again. Super simple. However, I get it, not at all easy, because this doesn't take into account that you might be worrying about X, Y, or Z, or this is going on, or that's happening in the world. Because when our brain is going 20,000 miles per hour and, I'm breathing, it's super simple. It's not easy. So please, I beg you, do not ever give up on yourself. Nobody is born a meditator. Well, unless you're like the Dalai Lama or something like that. But for the most part, none of us are born meditators. And at first, and again, even when you get where you feel like I'm a master meditator, here's the deal. There's still times of meditation, no matter how great you are at meditation, that you're going to have meditations that are awful, and you're looking at the clock every second and you are doing anything but meditating. That's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. Another example that I had go through my head was Eckhart Tolle did a book called The Power of Now. Now, I can sum this up in less than a page. Basically, be here now, because this is where all your power is, right now. When we're thinking about the past, we're losing energy. When we're worrying about the future, we're losing energy. The only time you can be effective is right here, right now. However, he's written several books since and gives lots of talks. Zen Buddhism, super simple, not easy. I mean, you can name anything. For instance, the teachings of Jesus Christ, super simple. Obviously, if you look, and I'm not knocking Christians, this is just something that I'm very well versed in, is super simple. His teachings are super simple, but obviously they're not easy, because when you look around at most people who call themselves followers of Christ or Christians, they're glomming onto the Old Testament. They're glomming onto this, that. Well, what about this? What about that? No, Jesus said, love God, love your fellow man as yourself. Don't judge people. I mean, and the thing is with Jesus, it's super simple to know what he actually said, because if you go into the New Testament, what he said, for the most part, depending on which Bible you're looking at, which version, but for the most part, it's written in red. So you can't get simpler than that. However, we complicate stuff. He even simplified the 10 Commandments for us. I grew up Lutheran, or till I was 15. I was raised Lutheran, and the 10 Commandments there's this thing called Luther's Small Catechism, and Martin Luther, which is why Lutheranism is called Lutheranism, Martin Luther wrote this whole thing. There's more than the 10 Commandments in there, but I mean, like, the 10 Commandments, most people like, don't kill, don't, I mean, like, we think it's really small. It's not. It's actually a really long thing. And then he has almost a page and a half of a description of what does this mean? And so taking something super simple, because Jesus basically said about the 10 Commandments, basically back to the love God, love your fellow man as yourself. And truth be told, you won't want to break any of those 10 Commandments, because if you love everybody like you love yourself, you're not going to want to kill them. You're not going to want to steal from them. You're not going to want to covet their stuff. You're not going to want to do any of those things. And I'm, of course, paraphrasing, because I'm not the type that on purpose memorizes things. However, so super simple. Yet look how complicated it is. I mean, if you look at Ireland of years past, where Catholics and Protestants were killing each other. And super simple ideas, however, people are killing each other over them. So not easy. And like I said, any teaching you can think of is usually super simple, however, not easy. For instance, the work by Byron Katie. Basically, let me give you a tip. If you do the work, which I was joking with a friend one day, you have to be really desperate to do the work, because it's so simple that most people are like, whoa, really? But what it boils down to is always you. So if you're complaining about something, it always turns back to you. So super simple, however, not easy. Not easy to swallow that pill of, if something bothers me about you, it's generally something in me. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me. Super simple, but how easy is that to live? I a lot of times will say, everybody's all one, and here's the deal. That's true until you cut me off in traffic. Then all of a sudden you're a jerk. But if we're all one, then I'm a jerk. So what I'm rambling on about here is the fact that all these things that are presented to us for our growth, for our betterment, for our wholeness, for our health, is super simple and is not super easy. So please don't ever give up. Don't ever get discouraged. It's all okay. We are not supposed to be done with this. And the reason that sometimes we have stuff that will give us results for a little while and then doesn't work so much anymore is that so we can go experience something new. And when you start looking at religion, when you start looking at spiritual teachings, basically they're all saying the same things. Even if you look at science and math, they're all saying the same things, just in different languages. However, all this is just giving us different perspectives, a different way to look at stuff. Because when we get this down, when we get this perfect, guess what? We're done. I mean, look, it's okay. It's okay when we have to practice and try again and again. The only time we truly fail is when we don't do things the way we think we should and we stop. So like when we give up on meditation, it's really easy to give up on meditation. Trust me, there's been so many years that I gave up on meditation completely. And I teach yoga and I teach meditation. There are days where I'm like, meh. However, what I do know is that, truth be told, everything you do, if you do it mindfully, is meditation. You don't have to sit on a cushion. You don't have to be like, any of that stuff. None of this stuff's necessary. That guy back there is not necessary. All the fancy crystals, all the fancy anything's not necessary. All we're doing is we're just going again and again. And I know there's the Yoda thing, and Yoda is one of my I really like Yoda. Do or do not, there is no try. However, unfortunately, there is. Or fortunately, there is try. That's all we can do some days, is that we can just keep getting up back on the horse. Not that I ride horses, obviously, but just be gentle with yourself, be loving with yourself. And again, I had so many different examples expressed to me in the middle of the night about this is a simple teaching. However, everybody's, making it complicated. Don't make it complicated. It's easy because it's simple. However, it's not easy because this gets in the way. Our conditioning gets in the way. Our culture gets in the way. What we've been taught. And most of the things, like I've said before, most of the things that we have been taught, most of the things that we learned at a really young age, and an age where we couldn't understand what we were actually being taught. So, keep it simple. Keep yourself out of frustration. When I teach yoga, a lot of times the poses that people have the most problems with are balance poses. And I always suggest that when we do a balance pose, that what you want to do is slightly challenge yourself, but not frustrate yourself. So the same things with all these teachings, all these practices, whatever you're doing, slightly challenge yourself, but don't frustrate yourself. Because frustration is one of those things that turns simple into a nightmare. And that's why we have to have all these things written around. That's why you have to have another book. That's why you have to have another thing, is that frustration. Really the art of just being okay with where you're at. And it's not, don't try new things, don't read new things, and also give yourself a chance. Anything new that you try, any tool, any technique, give it some time. I am personally going on like a tear where I am learning as much as I possibly can, trying as many things as I possibly can to help and show other people what things are. However, you have the luxury of, you don't have to do that. You can practice one thing at a time. Just because I put something new out this week, next week, whatever, doesn't mean you can ignore it. You can watch the video and then try it later on. Keep going with this technique or that technique. You don't have to keep dropping techniques. This could be something you use, techniques could be something you can use until they're not useful anymore. And then the other thing is, sometimes with techniques, is that they'll stop working for a little while. So that's kind of your cue to like, hey, seek out and adventure new things. And then sometimes you come back to those things and they're useful again. I find that like I said, I mentioned Byron Katie and the work a lot. And I go through phases with Byron Katie and the work. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I know it's me. And then other times it's a lifesaver. There's been times when Byron Katie's the work, I'm like, you don't need to do anything. No, you don't need to go to a therapist. You don't need to do anything. You got the work. It's perfect. I'm in bliss. Wherever you are, it's okay. Keep it simple. All right, guys. Peace, love, namaste.